Interest rates are going up. Most now agree it's not a matter of if, but when. The guessing frenzy began ahead of Ben Bernanke's nebulous May 2013 announcement heralding the end of quantitative easing. That brought on the taper tantrum. But rate hype has intensified in recent months, with traders taking serious odds on June and then September as the start of a long US-led tightening cycle. If the September call proves right, it will be the first round of rate hikes in a decade. Are we ready for it? Or will our low-rate addiction result in a nasty, protracted withdrawal? Any way you add it up, 6.5 years is a long time. It's a sizable chunk of anyone's career, and in this day and age is long enough to erase a lot of memories or to convince the unexperienced that there's no other reality. Let's face it, many young consumers and business persons, traders included, haven't really seen anything other than ultra-low interest rates. And for those who have, the addictive allure of cheap money has created a dependence that's tough to shake. At the same time, competition among lenders has led to ever more creative financial products that have loosened credit conditions further. If we truly are hooked on easy cash, will the U.S. economy be able to absorb the round of rate tightening, or are they in for a crash? The long period of low U.S. rates has few other comparison points. Indeed, the only other precedent seems to be Japan, where rates have been ultra-low for well over 2 decades. All are hoping that the U.S. playbook is substantially different. A quick scan of recent U.S. history shows how radically different the low-rate phase is from the norm. Try to find a prior period where rates were static for 2 years and you come up empty. Frankly, the norm is actually rate gyration. Over the past 30 years, there have been 2 600 basis point easing phases, a couple of 400 point tightenings, and a few lesser but significant change phases. There are still a good few of us around who remember the catastrophic effects of 20% mortgages and bargain basement auto loans at 14.2%. In this light, a tightening phase would not really be that abnormal. So, if they're imminent, are higher rates the next big threat to U.S. economic growth? Well, what do previous tightenings tell us? First, there are a lot to choose from. There was a landmark rate ratcheting in the late 1970s as the Fed took on the runaway inflation of that era. A similar battle saw rates spike in the late 1980s. Economic overheating brought a repeat in 1999-2000 and again in 2004 to 2006. Second, in each case, there was a significant slowing in GDP growth within a year or two. If pundits are right, the upcoming interest rate increases, on top of the particular shock they would be, stand to quash what little sustained growth we have seen thus far. This delicate situation has added huge importance to the timing and magnitude of rate increases and the accompanying messaging and signal sending from the Fed. But is the situation really that delicate? The tightenings mentioned are actually a selective sample. They are all late cycle tightenings, invoked because the economy was overheating after a long period of growth. Some feel that the U.S. economy is in a similar phase, that the 6 years of post-crisis growth are the length of a normal cycle, and that we are due for a slowdown. Well, if they are wrong, and we are still mid-cycle, or better yet, at the near end of a wave of growth, then rate tightening takes on a new meaning. In 1984, rates spiked to prevent a recovery phase from getting explosive. 10 years later, same story. In both cases, GDP growth was not disrupted, but instead stabilized. Without the tightening, growth would have been unsustainably higher and would doubtless have seen a run-up in inflation. Signals suggest that the U.S. is at the near end of a growth phase. Home building is still well below basic demands of the economy. Underconsumption is obvious, and the capacity to spend is strong. Businesses are ramping up investment to keep up with orders and avoid an imminent capacity crunch. Manifold indicators suggest that the best is still ahead. If so, higher rates won't nix, but will smooth the economy's near-term growth path. The bottom line? Rate hikes aren't always negative for growth, and the ones that are on the way seem much more like the final sign of entrenched growth than the economy's death knell. Until next week, I'm Peter Hall.